My name is Michael, a man in his 20s who dropped out of high school. I'm going to talk about my past and some recent events. My family was extremely poor. Both of my parents were often ill and not in good health, leading to frequent absences from work and thus low earnings. Moreover, they both worked part-time jobs, so it's probably more accurate to say we were living in extreme poverty. We had 2 younger brothers at home, making it even harder to get by with our parents' part-time incomes. Sometimes, our neighbors would share some rice with us, but those moments made me feel utterly miserable. While other families managed without needing to receive rice, I often wondered why we were so impoverished. I sometimes thought it would have been better if they hadn't had me, given our poverty, but such thoughts were useless. Since I was already born, there was no point in thinking about it. We had to live desperately, struggling to survive, even if it meant crawling and working just to eat. That's why my middle school days were absolutely terrible. I was constantly mocked and ridiculed by a wealthy boy in my class named Chris. His father worked for a trading company and seemed to be making a lot of money. Chris was in a public middle school, having spent his earlier years in elementary schools abroad. During French lessons, he'd show off his proficiency, flaunting his pronunciation skills, which I found incredibly arrogant. But I couldn't compare to Chris in either academics or sports. He was smart, excelling in all subjects besides French, and on top of that, he was a great soccer player, popular among the girls. Even Emily, the class beauty and the school's queen, seemed smitten by Chris. Emily had a bit of an older sister vibe, and I never heard her talk about the type of guy she liked. She didn't seem to engage in romantic gossip like the other girls, which made her seem somewhat cool to me. Chris appeared to have a crush on Emily, but he seemed reluctant to confess his feelings. He acted as though it was natural for all girls to come to him, which I found repulsive. I despised his arrogant attitude and silently cursed him in my mind. Chris insulted me even more, constantly calling me poor or low class. "Hey, isn't your uniform frayed? Aren't you going to fix it? Well, I guess someone as low class as you can't afford new things. Both your parents work part-time, right? If I were you, I'd get a new one right away. But you, Michael, you'd probably wear clothes even if they're torn. How miserable. That's the life of the lower class for you. So what? It's not like I'm bothering you, Chris. Just leave me alone, will you? How dare you talk back to me, you poor loser? Do you know who I am? I'm the son of an elite businessman. I don't want to hear such nonsense from someone as dirt poor as you. But the impressive one is your father, not you, Chris. You're just a middle school student who hasn't turned anything. Like a small man acting arrogantly through borrowed authority. Pathetic. What? Say that again. Your parents look poor and dirty, almost like homeless people, and you probably don't even bathe, right? That shabby apartment you live in probably doesn't even have a bath. Ahaha. Poor people can't even lead a basic cultural life. What a masterpiece. Enough, I'm going home. Chris's harassment about my frayed uniform was incredibly annoying. He bragged that his family was wealthy enough to buy new things immediately, which was probably true. He would carelessly throw away things like erasers in the school trash bins, even if they were still usable. To me, it seemed wasteful to throw away things that were still functional. One day, Chris casually threw away an eraser. It was more than half used, so I quietly picked it up. Seeing this, Chris burst into laughter. "Oh wow, have you started picking up trash now? You're just like a homeless person. Michael, you're the epitome of poverty. You're surely headed towards being homeless. Here, take this eraser, I'm giving it to you. Oh, do you want this half-eaten lunch too? You always have just a single bun. You probably can't even afford proper bread. My family only eats the finest bread. Cut it out. Why are you always so mean? Chris, you are really messed up." "You're defending Michael, huh? Do you know who I am? I'm the son of an elite. I too will become an elite in the future. Just shut up. I won't be silent. I hate people who are as mean as you. Even if you're good at academics and sports, you don't deserve respect. Instead, I respect Michael, who is a better person. He always takes the initiative in tending the flower beds. Hey, that's enough. Don't make yourself a target for Chris. Just forget about me. Oh, so you respect this trash more than me. That's funny. He's a useless poor guy who can only tend flower beds. A person who's useless in studies and sports is unnecessary in this world. People like me are what society needs. Ha 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 ha. Just shut up. All of you. That's enough, Michael, let's go over there. The only person who stood up for me was a classmate named Kevin. His father was a police officer. Perhaps that's why he had such a strong sense of justice. He always intervened in bullying and was quick to help those in need. Kevin always helped me, making him the only bright spot in my otherwise terrible middle school days. As I reached the third year of middle school, it was time to decide on our future paths. Of course, I wanted to start working right after graduating from middle school. My father and mother worked hard every day despite their struggles, and I had younger brothers to think about. So, I decided not to pursue further education and to work for the sake of my family instead. While everyone was listing the high schools they wanted to attend, I was the only one who wished to get a job. Chris said he would attend a famous private boys' school in the prefecture. It was known for its high tuition fees, which made me realize how wealthy he really was. Kevin, being quite smart, wanted to go to the second best public high school in the prefecture. I always received help from Kevin, so I truly hoped he would get accepted. During the entrance exam season, while everyone was applying to high schools, I wasn't doing much. Well, I was preparing for employment, but I hardly did any studying at all. Eventually, Chris got accepted into the famous boys' school, and Kevin got into the high school of his choice. At the graduation ceremony, everyone seemed happy, but I think I was the only one with a gloomy expression. After all, while everyone else would be wearing brand new uniforms and attending high school in the spring, I was the only one starting work. Even though it was the path I chose, I couldn't help but wish I could have experienced high school life too. I heard from someone that the lovely Emily was going to a famous girls' school. She was quite smart, so it made sense that she chose a school with a high academic standard. And so, after the graduation ceremony, I started working in April. At work, I was always pushed around. Being young, I often got yelled at by the other workers. Entering the workforce made me realize how tough it could be. When the day to receive my first paycheck came, I was shocked when I saw the salary statement. It was much less than I had imagined. After deductions for social insurance and other expenses, my take-home pay was around $900. I thought maybe I would have been better off working part-time, but since I had secured a full-time job and heard that it would be difficult to find another job as a high school dropout, I decided to stick with it and do my best. Time flew by quickly. Before I knew it, I was 25 years old, commuting between work and home every day. Lately, I've been extremely busy, with little time to sleep, and most of my meals are bought from convenience stores. I kept thinking that living like this would eventually break me down, but surprisingly, my body was resilient. Although my parents were often sick, I rarely caught a cold and never had any serious illnesses. In a daze, I got up, turned on the kettle, and prepared for my morning coffee. It's always instant coffee in the morning because it's less hassle. While sipping my coffee and browsing the news on my phone, I received an email from my former classmate Kevin. It seemed that he was off duty today. He had followed in his father's footsteps and become a police officer. A sudden class reunion next month. I'm curious to see how everyone is doing. If you are coming, I'd like you to be there. Of course, no pressure, but it'd be great if we could go together. So, I replied. That's pretty sudden. So, Have the place and time been decided? It's at a restaurant in New York called Hellman's. They were renting it out for the event. The date is the first Saturday of April, during Easter holiday. I have no plans that day, so I'm thinking of going. I see. I don't have any particular plans for that day either, so I'll go, but I probably wouldn't have gone if Kevin wasn't going. It's nice of you to say that. Well, I also want to see you, as we haven't met since then. Let's catch up at the reunion. And so, I decided to attend the reunion during Easter holiday. As I wasn't sure about the location of the restaurant, I met up with Kevin at the station and we went together. Kevin looked a bit tired as he had worked the day before, but I recognized him immediately, as he still resembled his younger self. "Ah, Kevin, it's me, Michael. Hey, long time no see. How have you been? Man, yesterday was terrible, dealing with a drunk old man. He was vomiting all over the place. Being a police officer must be tough, but it's an important job, keeping the city safe." "Well, I'm not on the career track, just a regular officer at a police box. I even failed to get into university." "That's still impressive, Kevin. You're doing great." Kevin had failed to get into university and then took the police exam as a high school graduate, where he got accepted. His father, being a career officer, was apparently happy that Kevin had become a policeman. Kevin's family had a history in the police force, so it must have been gratifying for them that he followed in their footsteps. Then we arrived at the restaurant. It had a very stylish exterior, the kind of place women would like. I didn't have a girlfriend, but I thought if I did bring one here, she would surely be pleased. Inside, everyone had already gathered, and Chris was loudly chatting away. Noticing us, Chris smirked and said, Well, the university dropout and the high school dropout have arrived. Huh? Come on, you don't have to say things like that at a reunion." "But it's true, isn't it? You were pretty smart, but it's a shame you didn't get into your first choice school." "Well, I guess it just means I was way smarter. I graduated from the prestigious Brown University, and am working at the same trading company as my dad. I'm an elite, you know. I'm already earning nearly $90,000 a year. That's why I can live in a luxury apartment. Soon, I plan to move into a tower apartment." "Ah, is that so? And you, the bottom dweller, must still be living in poverty. What's with those lame clothes? Can't afford anything better. I'm wearing all designer brands. This is from Aramar, and my watch is Omega. Pretty cool, right? Stuff you guys could never afford. An elite like me has to wear such things. Sure, I'm not that interested in brand stuff, so do whatever you like. Keep pretending to be tough, loser. You're going to live as a bottom dweller for the rest of your life." Chris continued to brag about himself. He was already married, boasting about how beautiful and skilled his wife was in cooking, and how he could afford to have her as a full-time housewife. But the way he talked about letting her be a housewife irked me. There are various reasons why women become housewives, like mutual agreement or the challenges of childcare. Chris didn't have any children yet, and his remarks made me wonder if he looked down on women. He always seemed to think that all women must love him and took for granted that he was attractive. That's probably why he could make such comments about women. I thought any feminist would be furious hearing him speak. Hey, Emily, do you have a boyfriend? You're not wearing a ring, so you seem single." I'm quite busy right now, so I don't have a boyfriend. Maybe when things settle down, I might consider it." "Really? Don't you want to snag a man like me, an elite? You know, I recently had a project approved that I proposed at work. My boss praised me a lot for it. It's practically a guaranteed promotion. After all, I am an elite, a graduate of Brown University." "That's impressive." "And as a reward, I bought the wallet I wanted. It cost $1,800, but that's normal for an elite like me. Working hard in a trading company. Wow, that's something." Emily, who was the school's queen, was still elegant and beautiful. In fact, She seemed even more refined than in middle school, almost like a young lady from a good family. I had heard that Emily's family was quite wealthy, but I didn't know exactly what her parents did. I guessed Emily wouldn't be interested in a nouveau rich like Chris. Moreover, Chris, despite being married, was flirting with Emily, which was truly distasteful. He kept boasting about his greatness, but Emily seemed utterly uninterested. Then Chris glanced at us and turned back to Emily, saying, "Do you know, this guy's annual income is only $9,000. I'm making $81,000 now, and it's almost reaching $90,000. It's so sad, isn't it? Being a high school dropout really puts you at the bottom." Hey, that's enough. Look, his parents were both part-timers living in a crappy apartment. Living in such a rundown place is just pathetic. When I lived abroad, my dad was an expat, and we stayed in a condo with a maid. I plan to be stationed abroad too and live in a luxury condo. I'll let my wife enjoy being an expat wife, and if we have children, I'll send them to international schools, just like I did. Stop it already. That's enough. I just wanted to leave. I had hoped to enjoy the reunion with Kevin, but it turned out to be too much. However, it suddenly started raining outside, and since I didn't have an umbrella, I decided to wait inside the restaurant for a while. About 15 minutes later, the other guys were excitedly talking about a luxury Mercedes that had pulled up in front of the restaurant. They had stepped outside for some air and were now making a fuss about the arrival of a black Mercedes, complete with a chauffeur. I went to the entrance of the restaurant. The chauffeur said, "Mr. Johnson, your car is ready," leaving Kevin and Chris surprised. "Wait, Johnson, are you talking about Michael?" "Yeah, I've been busy and couldn't get in touch, but I'm running a company now." "You're a president? Stop joking. How can you lie like that?" "It's no lie. You might know the company, a B Corporation. That's our business partner." Not knowing the president of a partner company, that's just pathetic. I've always known that Chris was from BC Trading Company. After all, I've seen you coming in and out of our office. "What? I can't believe you're Johnson, the president of the major AB Corporation. I apologize for what I said earlier. Please don't report me to the headquarters. I don't mix personal grudges with business. Though, I might request to change the person in charge. By the way, Chris, I heard you've been unpleasant to our female employees." "What? I just received an email from that employee. This isn't personal. I'll be formally filing a complaint. It'll be interesting to see what happens next." I pulled out some money and handed it to Chris. Everyone was excitedly gathering around the Mercedes, but Emily stood composed and dignified. "Did you enjoy making fun of Michael, saying his annual income is just $10,000, she asked Chris. Chris was at a loss for words. "Well, that's because," Emily pressed. "Where did you even get the idea that his income was $10,000? "From the company he first joined. I heard the pay was low." Chris defended himself. Emily counted. "Didn't Michael work his way up from there? You have no idea how hard he must have worked. I'm fed up with her talk. I'm leaving." "Emily, wait. I guess I'll head back too." "Come on, Emily and Kevin. I'll give you a ride home." Chris was furious. "Damn you. Just disappear. I'm leaving anyway. It'll be interesting to see what happens to you," I replied coolly. I instructed the chauffeur to first drop off Kevin at his home. Then, I found myself alone with Emily, feeling somewhat awkward. I wasn't good with women and didn't know what to talk about. But I was genuinely glad that Emily had stood up for me. I had always found her beautiful and had secretly harbored feelings for her since middle school. However, coming from a poor family and being shabbily dressed, I never dared to approach her. Emily was intently gazing outside. Unable to do anything about the rain, I had called for a car. As Emily watched the rain beating against the window, she finally spoke. "I knew you were a very hard-working person, Michael," Emily said. "Really? I didn't think I did anything to make me seem that way, I replied. Remember when you cleaned the school and removed stains that others couldn't? Or when you helped with a script for the cultural festival when everyone else was about to give up? You always helped out. I thought you were very diligent, she explained. I didn't know you thought of me that way. I was just the poor guy who was always made fun of by Chris. He's still being mean to me, I said. Ignore people like that. They're probably insecure. I dislike show-offs who only care about looking good. I don't want to associate with such people, Emily advised. Yeah, you're right. Chris is still the same brooding guy. I don't want to become like him, I agreed. You won't. You're humble, even as a company president. A friend of mine from university works at your company. She says you're a kind and good president, Emily revealed. Really? I had no idea. Who is she? I asked, surprised. Sarah, my best friend from university, Emily answered. Ah, Sarah. She's a very capable employee. I had no idea there was a connection, I realized. To my surprise, among my company's employees was Emily's university classmate. I was a bit shocked as I hadn't known about this connection before. You never know how or where people are connected. That's why I've always believed in valuing relationships and treating people with care. I had saved money working at my first job after dropping out of middle school. While I contributed to my family's expenses, I managed to save most of my earnings, always being frugal. Eventually, I decided to pursue the job I had always wanted. I have always wanted to become a president one day to make life easier for my family. Motivated by the desire to repay my parents, I started my own business at a young age. At first, my business didn't turn much, but gradually, it began to grow exponentially. Its rapid success surprised everyone around me. I even started trading with Chris's company, BC Trading. Chris frequently visited my company, and I had been observing him all this time. However, Chris never realized I was watching him, nor did he know that I was the president. I thought it was common for people in business to remember the president of a partner company, but Chris seemed only interested in immediate profits. He had been harassing a female employee at my company, and I had just been informed about it. I planned to report him to B Trading and change our business representative. I even secretly hoped his wife would divorce him. Afterward, I dropped Emily off at her home. At the end, Emily asked to exchange phone numbers with me, and we did. Having never exchanged private messages with a woman before, I felt a bit nervous. Her face was a bit red, possibly from drinking. My face must have been red too, but not from alcohol, as I don't drink. It was probably because I was thinking about Emily, which made my face feel so warm. Later, I learned that because of my report to B Trading, Chris had faced personal consequences. I felt a bit of gloating. Emily later invited me out to dinner as a thank you for the ride. We met at the designated place, where Emily arrived in a vibrant dress with her hair up. I nervously wondered if this was a date. I had never been in a relationship in my 25 years. Unsure how to act during a meal with a woman, I became stiff and awkward. Is there something wrong with the dish? It's my recommendation, Emily asked. No, it's delicious. I was just lost in thought. Sorry for zoning out, I replied. What were you thinking about? She inquired. Well, I can't really say, I hesitated. I've been thinking a lot about a certain man lately, Emily confessed. A man? Do you have a boyfriend? Then shouldn't you be with him instead? If he finds out, he might get angry. I should leave. I panicked. Don't be silly. I don't have a boyfriend. I never really wanted one. I've been busy with work, but lately, when I think about a certain classmate, my heart races, she revealed. Is that about me? I gasped. That's about you, Emily said. She smiled mischievously and winked at me. I was taken aback. Was Emily always this playful? Emily, who had always been cool and kept to herself since middle school, was now smiling at me. And she even winked at me, which left me wondering what it meant. I was thrilled, realizing my feelings weren't unrequited. Soon, Emily and I started dating. I thought she was quite cool, but she also had a playful side, and that contrast captivated me. Her occasional girlish smiles were incredibly charming, making me feel happy. Realizing I was the only one who saw the side of her made me grin. It's almost been a year since Emily and I started dating. I went to our date location with the engagement ring I had chosen for Emily. Emily was waiting for me at the station and handed me a coffee. With Christmas approaching, the city was brightly decorated with illuminations. After enjoying some shopping with Emily, we headed to a high-end restaurant. It was a bit early, but it was the season to enjoy Christmas dinner. Emily had a business trip next week, so we decided to have our date today. At the restaurant, I quickly took out the box with a ring. Emily, I chose this ring, thinking it would suit you. It's a token of my love. Please, will you accept it? Is this an engagement ring? Oh, I'm so happy. I didn't know I was valued so much, to be loved this much by you. Of course, you're my precious girlfriend. Emily, I want you to stay with me. I will cherish and care for you for the rest of my life, and I'll value our family. And of course, if we have children, I'll actively participate in parenting. So please, will you marry me? I love you too. Let's be together from now on. I'm looking forward to it. And so, Emily and I got engaged. I never thought I could have such ordinary happiness. I was disliked and poor as a child but managed to turn things around with my own efforts. But when I think about it, it wasn't just my own doing. Kevin, who always stood up for me, and my parents, who raised me with great effort, were always there for me. So, I decided to proudly tell Kevin and my parents about the engagement. When I informed Kevin by email, he was overjoyed. He even called me, crying with happiness for me. I was grateful to have such a good classmate, and I ended up crying too. I'm so happy for you, marrying Emily. I want to attend the wedding, be as happy as you can be, and never let go of Emily, no matter what happens. Kevin said. Yay, I know. Thanks, Kevin. I was so happy when you helped me in middle school when Chris bullied me. I'm so lucky to have had a classmate like you. After that, we visited each other's families to inform them and gain their approval. We held our wedding ceremony. Kevin came and cried while congratulating us. He's really a sentimental guy. Since then, Emily and I have been living together, combining our strengths as a couple. I'm determined to take good care of my wife, Emily, who is now my life partner.